I think that we're in a good spot. I think that we have an opportunity to hopefully climb that if we do what we could do over the next 2 weeks.
Hey everyone, welcome into TexAgs Rewind, presented by Specs in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Got Ethan Jones with me, got Cooper Patterson with me. Ethan, you got a little stat for us about New Mexico State?
Yeah, I think one big thing to watch for in the New Mexico State game is how the run game does without Le'Veon Moss. And Amari Daniels, he's been really good behind Le'Veon Moss. He's produced 466 rushing yards on 5 yards per carry. It's 466 rushing yards. It's second most in the SEC among non-starting running backs and 16th overall. So he's been really good behind Le'Veon Moss. Obviously, we got to see who steps up besides or like next to Amari Daniels.
Right.
But on his own, he's been really good.
He has been fantastic. Your favorite part of the show was?
The very beginning. That's the only part I watched. But it was good. You guys talked about.
You can always lie to the people and say, I just like the beginning. That's the only part I watched.
I'm trying to be honest with the.
No, just lie, okay?
I will.
That's how Nick got to the top. Okay. All right, Cooper, your favorite part of the show?
I really liked Brawny. Always brings it up. Great. I'm starting to get into recruiting. I usually didn't care about it in the past, but now I love listening to recruiting stuff. So Brawny's one of my favorite guests.
We also had, Max Wright on the program. He should have been everybody's favorite. He was great. Former player.
He was great.
Awesome. Great mustache. Great dude. That and more. It is a TexAgs Rewind. Check it.
Number 24, Missouri against South Carolina. Hey.
I'm interested in this one.
Missouri has 2 losses still. So they still have faint SEC championship game hopes. I mean, a lot of things would have to happen for them. South Carolina doesn't have a chance to get into the SEC championship, but they're playing as well as anybody right now.
They are playing.
And if I don't know,
pointing up,
definitely, and blinking. And
I was trying to. I think the gentleman who was on TV last night from the College Football Playoff Committee mentioning that when the reason South Carolina is ranked higher than LSU, even though LSU beat South Carolina, is the arrows. How are they pointing? LSU feels like it's pointing down, 2 straight losses, and it feels like for South Carolina pointing way up, a couple ranked wins in a row.
Yeah. I think if 2 teams have the same record, 99% of the time, if they played each other, then I would lean to the team that won. But if they have the same record and you played early and you see one is definitely trending one way, then I can get on board with that. Number 3, Texas at Arkansas. The Longhorns defense is rated number 2 in the nation.
We're about to find out.
But Arkansas has by far the best offense Texas faced. I think the Razorbacks are ranked number 5 in total offense.
Are they that high?
I think so. Somebody checked that on collegefootballstats.com. I think they're like.
How many points did A&M give up to them? 14?
14.
Huh.
They scored a bunch against Pine Bluff, so that doesn't really count. They scored a bunch against Oklahoma State. They still had 31 against Ole Miss. So they've actually put it. They moved the ball up and down the field against Tennessee. Only scored 19 points, but moved it. So I think
they did score 58 against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
They only scored 10 against LSU, but I believe that's the game Taylor Green got hurt.
Yeah,
he's been hurt a few times.
So anyway, I think that's going to be and on the road.
Actually, he didn't get hurt. I apologize. He played that whole game. He came in hurt where he couldn't run the ball very well, but he passed for 239. You pay attention to the college football rankings last night?
I did indeed.
Any takeaways?
I think that we're in a good spot. I think that we have an opportunity to hopefully climb that if we do what we could do over the next 2 weeks. And I think it's really interesting, man. The SEC has just been beating itself up this season, man. Just losses. Every single team having losses all across the conference. I mean, it opens up opportunities for. There's no clean cut, leader in the SEC now. And man, it's going to be an interesting final few weeks coming towards the end of the season.
You say we're in a good spot, and I agree with you. But here's what I'm worried about. And I brought it up a couple days in a row because I do think it's something to consider. If A&M wins out, they'll be in the SEC championship game. If they don't win that game, I don't know if they're in the playoffs. And that would it almost help you to be 10-2 and not play in it. But I want to go because A&M's never been to Atlanta. And I think if you win the next 3, you're going to win that 4th one. That's kind of like the Aggie in me thinking that. But the reality is one team's going to win, one team's going to lose. If that second team has 2 losses already, are they out? And they might be.
I mean, man, this is where the playoff committee is going to have such a hard time with trying to figure out how they're going to handle the last few weeks. Because I think you're right. I think that, we went out, we get to the SEC championship and we lose that game, there might be an argument for us to not be in the playoff, after losing that. I do think that if we win the next 3, we have a really good chance to, win that 4th one in a row and set ourselves up to be a high-rated team in the playoff rankings. But man, there's so many unpredictable things that can happen that I see your perspective of saying that if you do go 10-2, that maybe you have a better chance to get in. But I think that with, just how talented the SEC is and with the strength of our schedule, that if we went out and we get a chance to get into SEC championship, I see this almost as a lock of getting into the college football playoff. I just don't think that you can exclude a team that has the record that we've had this season and has done as well as we do. If we go to Atlanta and we do well and we play a good game, either way, I think that the 2 teams that are going to get in the SEC championship, I'd be very surprised if they excluded both those teams.
Let's talk about the final push, though, because there's some names out there still that they need to put some final touches on.
Well, I don't know that you need to.
You'd like to?
Yeah, I think you'd certainly like to add a Lamont Rogers or Michael Fasusi, a premier tackle, another premier tackle prospect in this class. I think you'd like to, in an ideal scenario, maybe add one more skill player, but it's got to be the right guy. Again, I've said it for the last month or so. Everybody is kind of up in arms. The one position in this class that folks are up in arms about is wide receiver. I just don't think they're going to go out and add a wide receiver just to add one. If somebody calls between now and signing day and says, hey, I'm interested, he's committed elsewhere, whatever, and it's a player that they've held in high regard, then that pursuit will happen.
Right.
As of now, I don't have a name for you to fulfill that, that projected or that kind of what if scenario. I don't have a name that I could say, yeah, it's Jerome Miles, or CJ Wiley. In fact, he just committed to Georgia. So I do think that if there is a skill player out there that they like, they would add them, but they're not going to do it just to fill a numbers box.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? So outside of those 2 tackles, it's really, Javion Hilson out of Florida.
Yep.
I think it's actually A&M Texas in Central Florida, which is interesting.
That's
because
he's from
because he's from there. And Toby Hastrip from Katy Maid Creek, who is still going on all of his visits. Nothing's changed on that front. There was a national article that went out that said Toby Hastrip's going to make a signing day decision. Well, he told me that in person 3 weeks ago. He's planning on taking all of his visits and then deciding in December. So we'll see where A&M lands on the other side. So A&M was this first, he went to A&M twice before he went anywhere else. Obviously, his sister's in school here. It's right up the road. He's got great familiarity with the town of College Station, the school, and then now also the football program. So we'll kind of see where A&M ends up after all these other visits that he's gone on. But really, outside of those 4 names, unless I'm missing something, you never rule out any kind of flip in recruiting.
All right, let's get to football. The college football playoff rankings came out yesterday. 3 Big Ten teams in the top 4. Look, there's a lot of football that has to shake out. What are your initial thoughts seeing the rankings?
Penn State's a fugazi. I can't stand Penn State. Penn State would lose to 5 teams in the SEC. But get lost with this. Penn State's going to get a home playoff game against Ole Miss. I think that was the one that popped up last night. And Ole Miss will run through them like, diarrhea after a trip to Mexico. They will run right through them. And I can't for the life of me see. Now, Oregon's a good football team. Ohio State's a good football team. Penn State is, Indiana's better than Penn State. And I even think Indiana might have some limitations once they start playing some legit teams. But Oregon, Ohio State, yeah, okay. But to have Penn State in that mix, you can miss me with that. The only team that Penn State has played this year that's been worth a damn, they lost at home by a touchdown. So you can miss me with the Penn State stuff. Sorry, Penn State listeners, you just can't. I just don't think they're at that level. The rest of the teams are. But I think Big Ten, SEC, I think it's been clear in the Big Ten, it's Oregon, Ohio State. It'll be interesting to see how Indiana is going to fare with Ohio State in a couple weeks. But Indiana's got a week off to kind of get everything together before they go up there. And I think Indiana has a really good football team. I think they're better than Penn State. And I think Indiana is properly ranked. I think Penn State, I wouldn't even put Penn State in the top 11. I don't care what the record is. They haven't done anything to impress me this year. Ooh, they came from behind out in LA. Ooh, great. They beat a team that's 500 or whatever USC is. So you get lost with Penn State. What I think is also interesting is like seeing SMU, who right now might be the second best team in the state of Texas. SMU is a damn good football team. To see SMU behind Miami and not even in the playoff is mystifying.
We're going to close it out here, and I'm going to allow, I wasn't going to allow Ethan to do it, but he didn't watch most of the show.
Yeah.
Cooper, tell the people what to do.
I'm going to keep it simple. You got to like, you got to comment, you got to subscribe, and you got to share. It's that simple.
And no streaking on Northgate. Remember that.
Yeah, don't do that. That's not a part of our instructions.
All right, we'll see you next time. It's TexAgs Rewind. Thank you so much.